Okay, welcome everyone to our March edition of Multicloud Happenings. I really appreciate you joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about our Exadata Database Service on Exascale Infrastructure. This is one of our newest database cloud services that we launched last year with a brand new storage architecture, and it's our first shared database service on our Exadata Database Service family. So today, my name is Tammy Bednar, and I'm a Senior Director of Product Management. I focus on our Exadata database services, our base database services, and multi-cloud as well. So thank you again for joining me today. As you know, this is our safe harbor statement, and this is intended to show our general product direction, and it's for informational purposes only. So anything I say, you can't write into a contract. You can't trust PMs as well. Also, if you have any questions, please post those in Q&A, and I'll try to take a look at those as we go along with this session as well. Okay, so just first of all, now with multi-cloud, you can deploy your Oracle Database Cloud anywhere. You can run it in the cloud, on premises, in our OCI dedicated regions. You can run it on Exadata Cloud at Customer. And then what's really exciting, over the past year, we've been able to run our Exadata service in any hyperscale in public cloud, whether that be AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud, and of course in OCI. What this gives you, and which is really exciting, the same database, the same features, the same pricing, and be able to get the same experience wherever you need to run your workload and applications. We can help you with that solution. And so hopefully a lot of you are running Exadata today, or if not, welcome. I hope this is your first webcast on Exadata. And Exadata provides extreme performance because we provide a lot of just unique algorithm. It's not just the hardware stack. It is a lot of integrated the database and the hardware together. And so now it's available in every leading cloud, as I just mentioned, whether it be an OCI, Oracle Database at Azure, Oracle Database at Google Cloud, or Oracle Database at AWS, which are multi-cloud solutions that co-locate your applications and the Exadata, giving you the highest performance, lowest latency to run those workloads for you. Okay. So the topic today is Exadata Exascale, now available on Oracle Database at Azure. Hopefully you saw our press release that came out at the end of last week announcing the availability of this new service. So let's first of all, briefly, let's take a look at what is Exadata Exascale. So we've taken all the Exadata intelligence, all those different unique algorithms, being able to provide you the best performance for your AI workloads, for your OLTP workloads, the analytic workloads as well, and then also merging that with cloud benefits. What do I mean by best of all the cloud benefits? The elasticity, the scalability, the cloud economics, being able to pay for only the resources that you use. So together is what was released now, the Exadata Exascale architecture. And so what we're also releasing is this new storage architecture that brings the best of Exadata and the best of cloud together as well. So this is an overview of our Exadata database service on the Exascale infrastructure. It's affordable. It gives you a very low entry point into the cloud if you've always wanted to run on an Exadata platform, but you felt like the workload was very small, that it just really you didn't get your benefit or your total cost of ownership on a dedicated infrastructure. This is going to give you the opportunity to run any size workload and a lower entry point into the cloud as well. It's very scalable. It still provides you full administration control, and it's really great with dev tests, and I'm going to explain that in just a minute. So with this Exadata database service, which is a shared option, that means there's no dedicated hardware that you are responsible for. And so what you do, you come in and you provision at the VM cluster level, specify how much storage you need into this new storage architecture called the Exascale Storage Vault on how much storage you need for your databases. And it's very fast. It can spend up. I think we can I think I can spin up a VM cluster in about 40 minutes. So it's pretty fast. And we've now added to create efficient database clones or thin cloning. So cloning is very fast, and also it's very efficient the way it uses the storage. You can start very small. You can begin with the cluster of 2 VMs. And now with the Exascale infrastructure, we're using eCPUs. That's a whole conversation about OCPUs versus eCPUs. Basically, it's a 4-to-1 ratio. So 4 eCPUs is equivalent to 1 OCPU. If you want to put that in your mind, think about how many OCPUs that is. So we start with 8 eCPUs on each VM, and then 22 gigs of memory. And then for the Exadata database storage, for your databases, you can start off with as small as 300 gigabytes of storage. And then you can grow and the VM cluster up to 10 VM clusters whenever you need it. So you can scale up when you need more resources, or you can scale back down when you don't need those extra resources as well. And of course, just like all our other services, we provide a web and API interfaces for you to manage your Exascale infrastructure as well. And so again, the great thing is if you have small workloads and you've always wanted to try out the Exadata platform, you get the same Exadata performance, reliability, availability, and security that comes with our dedicated environment, all on this shared architecture. So this is the responsibility matrix. So if some of you remember with the Exadata Dedicated, you have the hardware and software that's there that you manage. With the new Exadata Exascale infrastructure, what you do is you provision what we call an Exadata Database Storage Vault. And the vault is where you provide the number or the amount of storage that you want to use for your database storage. And then above that, you have your VMs, just like you do today. We provision an Exadata VM cluster. And within the VM cluster, of course, you have your grid infrastructure, your database homes, and you can have more than one database home. And then, of course, your data and schema. And so really, the responsibility for you is you subscribe to how much storage you need, figure out what database versions you want to run, which right now, I hate to tell you though, but the Exadata Exascale only supports Oracle Database 23 AI. Another great opportunity, if you've been wanting to try out 23 AI, is to spin up a real fast an Exadata Exascale VM cluster and try it out. So all databases are 23 AI today. And then, of course, you just migrate over your data to run your databases as well. Whoops. So this is the flexible configuration. So as you can see, we can start with a minimum size of 2 VM clusters, 8 total eCPUs per VM. So you'll have a total of 16 in a 2-node VM cluster. And then you have 280 gigabyte file system storage per VM. So, the image itself, when we provision it, has a standard structure or file system that we have laid out in it. We give you 280 gigabytes of file system so that you can grow those file systems if you need to. And then the minimum configuration for database storage is 300 gigabytes of storage that go into the Exascale Vault database storage per VM cluster. And as you can see, you can grow up to, scale up to a total of 10 VM clusters, a total of 200 eCPUs per VM, 2 terabyte file system storage per VM itself for the image, and 100 terabyte of Exascale Vault database storage per VM cluster. And Vishal, thank you for your question. So right now today, there is a limit of 10 VMs per VM cluster. So that's what we have today. That's what's available today. Now, it's very simple to scale up. And also with memory within your Exascale VM image, you get 2.75 gigabytes per eCPU. And we'll talk about that more in just a few minutes. You can add and remove VMs from your VM cluster as you need more resources or you don't need resources as well. Right now, we said the minimum size is 2 VM clusters. We're working on the ability for you to also create a single node VM cluster as well, so you can even start smaller. So with this new storage architecture, we can provide new database-aware intelligent clones or very thin clones. And it's very fast. You don't have to have a read-only test master to start with. You just go over to your VM cluster and you go, I want to clone it. And then depending on where you want to clone it, if you want to clone your PDB within the same VM cluster or using the same Exascale storage vault, then it becomes a thin cluster. You do have a choice of creating a full clone, whether you want a full clone within your same VM cluster or you want to use a different storage vault. You can create thin or regular thin or thick clones or VM clusters or of your CDBs. We're using the Exascale redirect on write technology, and that's how we become very efficient with the storage with this cloning. You can create thousands of these clones very easily for your development and test environment. And what's great is that these thin clones, you're able to also achieve the same level of performance that you do with your original PDB and CDBs as well. So let's talk briefly about the different components. So we have a clusters of VMs that are running on Oracle managed physical database server. So we're creating these VMs out of the storage that is available within that pooled storage that we have within Exadata. And the VM file systems reside on managed storage separate from the database servers. And then an Exascale Vault provides the storage for the databases. And as you can see, you can have more than one VM cluster that points to or uses the same Exascale Vault storage. And that's where I was talking about with the cloning. So maybe you have these 3 VMs and you've decided you want to clone from VM1 to VM2. If you're using the same Exascale Vault, then you can create a thin clone across these VMs. Now, I think this is a very important part as well, because this has to do with the number of eCPU resources, your memory resources, and also how does it impact if you need to scale up your eCPUs. So there are 2 different types of eCPUs. There's enabled eCPUs and reserved eCPUs. So the reserved eCPUs mean they're guaranteed to be there and available standing by, although you're not using them. Enabled CPUs is what's in use and active at the time when you provision your VM cluster. And then the total is the sum of the 2 together. So why is this important to have reserved eCPUs? So remember, this is a shared architecture. And so when you scale up, you want to be able to scale up very quickly with your eCPUs. With having reserved eCPUs, this means you can scale up your VM clusters without having to reboot. Now, you can enable your VM clusters without reserved eCPUs. That's perfectly fine. It's just that when you scale up, that means we may have to move your VM cluster from one system to another because there may not be any eCPUs available on that particular database server. Now, the other important point that I want to point out is your memory. So for every eCPU or total eCPU that you have specified for your VM cluster, your VM cluster has a total of 2.75 gigabytes per eCPU. So if you have 32 eCPUs, then you get about 44 gigs of memory per VM. And we'll take a look at that, how you can see how that scales up. You can scale memory by scaling more total eCPUs. Does require a rolling reboot if you do not have those reserved eCPUs as well. Now, the licensing fees, which is another important part, only applies to the enabled eCPUs. And then infrastructure fees apply to the total number of eCPUs. So when you start looking at the licensing of Exascale Infrastructure, you'll have eCPUs and then you'll have an infrastructure part as well. So just like all our systems, there is some maintenance that is required. So with storage servers, you're not aware of the storage maintenance event, reboot as we need to with the storage servers, because remember, the storage is triple mirrored. And so you always have your storage that's being used triple mirrored across different storage devices. And so when we had to reboot one of the storage servers, that actually is not it's not disruptive because you have two other storage servers that are up and running. And then Exascale automatically handles any data movement that is required to maintain redundant data copies as well. Now, I didn't say anything, but this means with this new Exascale architecture, there's no more ASM, data disk groups. That means there's no more ASM rebalancing involved whenever we reboot the storage servers. On the database servers, well, we need to be able to maintain your database server. So there may be a reboot may be required in order to update that maintenance. The way it works is we will provide a 2-week notification window of when your VM cluster is going to be rebooted. Now you have the choice of either rebooting between that 2-week notice or just waiting for Oracle to automatically issue the reboot command as well. So let's take a look quickly on how that works. So here we have 2 database servers and your VMs and your VM file storage. Remember, the file storage for your VM image is created or carved out of your storage servers. So it's now been determined that this particular database server needs maintenance. So now this VM is going to be migrated over to another database server that has already been updated with the maintenance. So we have that OCI event. We send out the notification letting you know that this particular VM cluster is going to be rebooted for maintenance. You're notified, and then you can either do it yourself, reboot, or let OCI reboot it. And we initiate the reboot, and the VM cluster is now moved over to the database server. And as you can see, we just point the VM over to the file system storage that is used, that we used or allocated out of your VM image. So it's very fast. So the VM boots up on a new pre-updated server. The VM storage is attached to the new location. So that's pretty much the way the maintenance works on the Exascale infrastructure. Okay. So hopefully over this short kind of overview of the Exascale infrastructure, you can see the key benefits of our Exadata Database Service on Exascale infrastructure. First of all, it's powerful. You have all the unique Exadata performance, reliability, availability, and securities are just built in. It just comes with the Exascale infrastructure. It's extreme low cost because you pay per use. We have a low entry cost into the cloud and no cost per IO. So you get the performance benefits of Exadata automatically with the Exascale infrastructure. Now, what we do with this new shared architecture is we pull all those resources together. We have the database servers, the storage servers that we pull together, and this provides the elasticity that you're looking for whenever you need to scale up to get more resources or scale back down. They're in that pool and able to utilize them effectively for your workloads. And then we've added a new agility capability to be able to very quickly and easily clone or do provide thin cloning, I should say, of your PDBs. And we can create thousands of these clones, and it's very storage efficient. So this means that you don't need as much storage if you're always creating the regular thin or thick clones as well. So whatever your size of workloads that you need, the Exascale you can benefit from the Exadata platform. All right, now let's quickly switch over and I'll show you a demo of running on our Azure portal. Okay, so here I am. I'm logged into my Azure portal. And as you can see, this is the Oracle Database Azure portal, or I should say the location of where we have all our Oracle Database Azure services. We have our Autonomous Database Service and our Exadata Database Service, and now we've added our Oracle Exadata Database Service on Exascale Infrastructure. So the first thing you're going to do is go to a VM cluster and create it. Really, before you create it, you're going to create your network, by the way. So there's a couple of steps that you need to achieve before you get to this point. One is make sure you have your subscription, and then you also will create a resource group. Now we're ready to enter our Exascale VM cluster details, the name of it, what region it would be located in. And this one just happens to be in Brazil South Zone 1. That's where I have my limits specified. And then you're going to name your cluster. And then you select the license type. Now remember, with licensing within the cloud with our services, you can either choose license included, which will give you access to all the database options that you can think of that you want to use within Enterprise Edition database, or you can bring your own license. So if you have some licenses on premises, you can bring those into the cloud to use those capabilities. Now you have an option of selecting a time zone. You can either leave it at UTC or you can select another time zone. Now remember, I said with Exascale, it requires 23 AI. So your grid infrastructure right now, the only choice you have is 23 AI. However, what we have provided is the ability for you to choose which grid infrastructure version that you want to provision your Exadata with, or your VM cluster with, I should say. Now, I know that some of you like to run at N-1 version. Some of you may want to go, I just want the latest. But this gives you the flexibility and choice. So maybe you want to create a new VM cluster with a previous version, test it out, and then test out the maintenance update as well. So we'll just pick 23.5.0.24.07. Now we're ready to create our storage vault. Remember, the storage vault is what the storage is that you need in order to hold your databases. So I'm going to create a new one, or you can select an existing one. So with the Exascale infrastructure, your VM clusters can share a vault between themselves, or you can create a new vault. Now I'm just going to create a new vault. And then the storage capacity that you want, 300 gigabytes is the minimum. And you can, of course, increase that when you provision it, and you can always scale up later as well. Now, if you start, testing out your database workloads, you may feel that you want additional smart flash and memory cache options. Now, you do get smart flash and memory cache within this 300 gigabits of storage. However, you may feel like that based on this particular workload that you want to be able to have some more flash cache. So you can click on that and you can add additional smart flash cache and to be added as well. Now, that is an extra cost, just to be aware of that. So what I would do as a recommendation is create one without the smart flash, run your workloads, and see how the behavior is from your performance perspective. And then you can always come back and add it later. Then for security, you want to generate a new key pair. I'll just put something in here at the moment. Then under configuration, this is where you specify the number of VMs that you want in your cluster. Now, right now, the minimum is 2. We will be updating this in the near future where you could start off with 1 VM cluster if you want. So that's coming soon. And remember, for each VM cluster, you want to, how many eCPUs do you want to enable? Remember, we have enabled and we have reserved eCPUs. So in this particular case, I'm going to enable 8 eCPUs per VM. And that's the minimum number that you have to provide to run your VM cluster, or your VM, I should say. So right now I have 16 total between the 2 VM clusters, right? 8 eCPUs on each node. Now here's where I can add additional reserved eCPUs. And those reserved eCPUs increase your memory, because if I go down here, you can see that right now I have 22 gigabytes of memory per VM. Also, again, when you scale up, and if you want to make sure your eCPUs are there when you scale up, this is where you would add additional reserved eCPUs. So I'm going to add an additional 8. So I'm going to say 16, excuse me. I want 16 total eCPUs or 8 more eCPUs to be reserved in case I want to scale up. So this means with this additional reserved, I am using a total of 32 eCPUs across my cluster. That gives me 16 eCPUs per VM. And you can see that my memory doubled from 22 to now to 44 gigabytes per VM as well. And then I'm going to use a total of 88 across the 2 VM clusters at this point. So hopefully that clarifies about enabled and reserved eCPUs a little bit. Now, how much storage do I want for my VM image? Now, right now we start with 280 gigs. Now, we do have a standard VM image that we provision, and it has different file systems in it. One of the enhancements that will be coming is that we will provide you the ability to resize or grow these different file systems. That's coming, so stay tuned for that. So you can start out with 280 gigabytes for storage for your databases. So we're going to use 560 gigabytes of storage. And remember, that's coming out of your storage servers across the VM clusters. Then you're going to select your networking. So you've already created your networking before you started provisioning your VM cluster. So I already have one within my resource group called Exascale Test Prod-2. And remember, within Azure, the networks that connect to the database are delegated. So it automatically, I already have a subnet that's created, that's a delegated subnet. It automatically populates it here. Now, there is an entry where you can enter the backup subnet CIDR. I usually leave this blank because the backup network will be automatically assigned when you provision your VM cluster. So I would just leave this blank at this point. Then your DNS, you can put a prefix into your DNS, and this will update your host name domain and your host and domain URL as well with your prefix. Now, here's another part that we get lots of questions on is your scan listener port. We defaulted to 1521. If you don't want to use 1521, now is the time to change that. You cannot change it after you provision. So you can choose a different port, and you can use the range between 1024 and 8999. But this is the time to change it from 1521. You can also add additional network ingress rules at this point. If you have already set up a network and you know that you want additional ingress rules, you can specify those there or here. Then we have something called diagnostics collection. And this is where we try to be a little bit more proactive to monitor the health of your environment. If you enable diagnostics events and health monitoring by keeping this check marked, what this means is Oracle DevOps will pool different events and health monitoring. And if we see any kind of vaults, then we'll let you know and go, hey, with your VM cluster, we have seen this, FYI. And then also incident health logs and tracing. This is where you give Oracle DevOps permission to go pull any log or trace files from your VM cluster if you create an SR. I started my Oracle career in support. That's the first thing I would ask a customer when they opened up an SR is, can you send me your log and trace files? This takes the onus off of you. This means that support will pull the logs and trace files that we need in order to help you with that SR. Finally, you click on the terms of service, and then you can add additional tags. Now, these are Azure tags if you want to organize your resources using Azure tags. And then when you go next, it validates all the information that you just entered. And if it looks correct, you can press create. So I've already got one created. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. So here is one that I've already created. And if you click on that, you can see all the information of that Exascale VM cluster that I've created. So you have resource allocation. This particular one does not have any reserved eCPUs. I've enabled 24 of them, and you can see how much memory I have as well. You can see the Exadata image version. This is your operating system and the Exadata system software version. So currently it's running 24.1.8. And by the way, that I know for a fact is OL8 operating system. Here's my grid infrastructure version, and then all the information around my network. So now once your VM cluster is provisioned, your Exascale Vault storage is provisioned. Oh, by the way, let me see. There's also some monitoring metrics here before I jump over to OCI. And you can also look at some of the properties that are associated with this VM cluster as well. Lots of details around your VM cluster as well. All right, so now let me go back to my infrastructure again. So now that my VM cluster is provisioned, I'm ready to provision my databases. So you can see here's a deep link that says go to OCI. Okay, so you can see that this dropped me directly into the VM cluster that I just created on the Azure portal. And here you can see the multi-cloud information that this is in Azure. Here's your subscription information if you need to know more about it. And of course, here's your Exascale database storage information. And you can see that I have 832 gigs free out of a terabyte of storage as well. So what I want to do is create a database. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to say create a container database. And so remember, this is 23AI. And with 23AI, we only support the multi-tenant database architecture with container databases and pluggable databases as well. So I click on that. You can provide a unique name. You can select a database version. You can provide the first PDB name if you want. And then you can specify a database home. You can select an existing one, or you can create a new one. You can enter the database home display name, and you can select the image. If I say change my database image, if you change this or turn this on to display all available versions, yet again, we will provide N-3 latest versions of 23AI. And so instead of going to the latest of 23.7, maybe I could start with 23.5. I didn't discuss this, but we also have a way for you to create custom database software images. I don't think I have any at this point in time, but this gives you an opportunity to create images with specific one-off patches. It's like a gold image as well. Also with custom database software images, this gives you an opportunity to go to create an older gold image. I think we give you the last or provide you the last 10 versions or release updates for your database to create a database software image. So you have a lot of flexibility to create the gold images that you want so that you can test them out before you move that into production. So I'm going to select that version of the database. You put in your password credentials here. Okay, I've been typing that enough, it matches. And then you have an opportunity to configure automatic backups. If you don't want automatic backups, you just uncheck it. Again, the options for automatic backup are object storage and also autonomous recovery service. I just don't have the autonomous recovery service configured yet in my tenancy, so I apologize for that. But we would recommend using the autonomous recovery service for your backup. And then you can specify backup retention period. You can select how long you want to keep the backups if the database is terminated. And also on autonomous recovery service, we've now added long-term backup retention as well, up to 10 years. So I would encourage you to go take a look at the autonomous recovery service capability. All right, and then under advanced options, you can select your character set. With encryption, all databases that are in the cloud require to be encrypted. You can either use what we call Oracle managed keys, and that's where we keep the keys in the wallet. So if you've used TDE previously, this should sound very familiar to you. Or you can also use customer managed keys, and this is where you want to use OCI Vault, or Oracle Key Vault. So we give you a lot of options to manage your keys as well. And then we also have tagging resources in OCI as well. So these particular tags is what you want to create within the OCI if you want to organize your objects within the OCI. Then once you're happy with all the information, you say create container database. And you can see that I have a database that's already created. And you can see the information. We have metrics here. There's also metrics within the Azure portal that are tightly integrated. So these metrics, we automatically will ship over into Azure so that if you want a single portal for your metrics, you definitely have that opportunity to view those metrics as well. You just select the scope and the namespace, and then you'll be able to see that. I think I've got this one here. Okay, so you can see the allocated space by table space is there. We have CPU utilization as well. So a lot, as you can see, here's the metrics of the CPU utilization that you can also access within Azure as well. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a really good idea of how easy it is to spin up an Exascale infrastructure VM cluster, as well as provisioning your database. Now, I did jump over into OCI to provision my database. You can definitely run the OCI commands within within your cloud here, or your cloud shell. And because I haven't got it set up here, but you can run those commands within the cloud shell as well to provision your databases as well. Just wanted to mention that too. Also, we have a step-by-step guide over on OCI, or I'm sorry, within our Learn area, our architecture. I'll put this in chat. So if you want to take a look at the step-by-step guide, you're welcome to take a look at that as well, which covers everything that I walked through today. Okay, there's a question. Let's take a look at the question real fast. From a BYOL perspective, how many dedicated customers can I host per VM? Honestly, because this is a shared architecture, I would say one VM cluster per customer that you have, because that's the isolation level, is at the VM cluster level. Hopefully, that answered your question on that. Does anybody else have any other questions that you want to ask? We have a few minutes left, and let me go back to the PowerPoint here. I will be posting this PowerPoint or the PDF of it on the Ask Tom landing page that you went there today when you joined this session, and you'll be able to access these links. So we have more information for Oracle Database at Azure, at Google Cloud, as well as AWS, our partnership right now with AWS. Okay, and also if you want to join the discussion about our cloud database services, we do have an external Slack channel. Would love for you to join that too. Okay, if there's no other questions today, one last chance to ask any questions. I do want to thank you all for joining me today to learn about the Exadata Database Service on Exascale Infrastructure and how exciting it is to have that available now at Oracle Database at Azure. If you would like to see some other topics with our multi-cloud happenings webcast, please send them my way. Always open to hearing more from you as well. Okay, with that, I guess I'll sign off for this month, and I'll see you next month on Multi-Cloud Happenings. Have a great day. Bye.